Do you have to present a lot of complicated models? Want to see a slide makeover where I make them cleaner and easier for your audience to follow along? Then stay tuned for this video, which is part of my slide makeover series. These slides come from viewer Jeannette Bog. Thanks so much, Jeannette. You're the best. So let's check out some of the slides she sent me and do a diagnosis. So I have to say that she did a pretty good job. I like these robot illustrations. They kind of remind me of the Jetsons. And she shows her models piece by piece using a very simple animation build. And she does things like keep one part of the model showing on the next slide so you connect concepts from slide to slide. And she uses videos in a really engaging way. Based on her notes and the way this whole thing is set up, I get the impression that listening to her is very much like listening to a story about machine learning. She also uses icons in a really effective way. She uses two colors in a consistent and meaningful way throughout her entire presentation. There are some slides that have a lot of text and bullet points, but that's okay. There is always room for improvement in every slide deck. But overall, I just wanted to make sure that I say she's done a great job with a lot of design principles. Well done. So let's circle back and diagnose some elements that could still be improved. Let's go back to this slide and talk about some things I'm going to change. First, we have some template clutter, like this red bar that doesn't need to be there and doesn't match any of the other colors in the slides. And this line, again, it just doesn't need to be there. We also have some issues with hierarchy. Right now, the heading text doesn't look all that different from the body text. It's just a bigger size, which is not enough to create a solid structure. As for this slide, overall, it's a bit messy. It isn't immediately clear that there are three separate models here. It could easily be mistaken for one long, complicated model. And one reason it feels messy is because we have some issues here with alignment. Now, these kinds of things happen a lot when people are presenting models. There's a lot of components, and if you don't add in some purposeful, intentional design work, your audience probably won't be able to see the structure very easily, and they'll get overwhelmed very quickly. And you probably expected me to talk about this slide, which has way too much text, 88 words to be exact, which means it gets a score of 0 on BATS, or my ban all that text scale. But I'm not going to redo that slide in this makeover, because my last makeover focused on how to deal with text slides, how to get text off your slides and design that more effectively. So I recommend that you watch that video to learn some ways to redesign that slide. So let's get to the makeover. Are you ready to see how I cleaned up and organized those slides? We'll start with this one. First, we gotta get rid of the template. Let's delete the bar, let's delete the line. Now we have more room to play with. So let's move that heading up a bit. And now we can work on that structure, that hierarchy. I want to make it super obvious which text is the heading and which text is the body. So I'm going to make the heading bigger and bold it. And then I'm going to go one step further and change the color so it matches that color from the model. And then, now that I've done all that, I'm just going to tweak things a little bit more by moving all of it up a little bit. Just feels a little bit more balanced. So there we go. I removed clutter and added a better hierarchy. And this little tweak actually makes a big difference when you're presenting slide after slide after slide that has a lot of information on it, like this one. Making these kinds of small changes will actually have a big impact on preventing the cognitive overload among your audience. Now let's talk about the makeover for this one. Like I said earlier, it feels a bit messy and the alignments are off. It's hard for the audience to know which elements belong where. So again, the first step is to remove the template clutter and create a good hierarchy with the heading. And now we have more space to rearrange the slide so everything is aligned properly. So I'm going to move that first model up so it's aligned with the other two models. And I left aligned all the model titles because center alignment makes things look messy. But there's still more I can do to help organize this slide. If you aren't careful, if you're in the audience and you ignore those titles, again, you might mistake this for one really long, complicated model. So to prevent that, I add light gray borders around each of them. Now it feels just a bit more put together, and it's easier to see that this is actually 3 separate models. And I would recommend that you use animations to show only one model at a time as you're introducing it. So now let's deal with that text on the bottom. Right now, it feels a bit out of place, almost like an afterthought. Now, she did a good job of setting up an animation so that you only saw that text at the end when she was talking about it. But we can go one step further. I'm going to add a bar, and notice it's the same color we've used before. I'm trying to not introduce any new colors to these slides. And then I change the text to white and adjust it so it all fits on one line. Notice how much more organized and clean this feels? Let's compare the before and after. So we had a slide that was already pretty good and pretty much just needed a little bit of cleanup. But again, one small tweak like that makes a huge difference when there's already a lot going on in a slide. Then we had this slide, which felt a bit disorganized. So I used several different design techniques to organize it. Not only does it look more professional, but it will be easier for the audience to follow along. I do have a free download available because people are often surprised at how difficult it can be to reverse engineer slides. I hear all the time, Echo, you made it look so simple, so why can't I figure out how to do it myself? That's because there's some subtle design techniques I used, and I have a list of all of them that I used in this makeover in the free download. Link is in the description below. Let me know what you think of this makeover. In the comments below, share what changes you would have made to these slides. But thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, share it with your friends and colleagues on social media, and be sure to connect with me on Twitter. See you next time. Bye.